I will. Oh, please, as always. Goodbye then. Be safe, friend. Don't you dare. I will. Oh, please, as always. Goodbye then. I will. Oh, as always. Goodbye then. Come back.
can't roll into it, so you can't punish it. Caught me in the roll. That collided through it. I forgot that this thing adds a fire effect onto your kick. Awesome. Great job. Tech W. I can't believe I got it. You jump that far? Stop doing that, motherfucker! This game's really trying to piss me off today. And yep, just fucking forced me to get stun locked. Couldn't do anything. Fucking son of a bitch who designed this stupid fucking enemy. There's a thing just like that with about every fucking enemy in this game. In these games, I should say. Where it's just like, the enemy would be fine to deal with if it didn't have this one thing about it. And that one thing about the fucking Titanite demons that makes them stupidly fucking annoying to deal with is that I have fucking quintuple hitboxes on my goddamn jump attack that has 100% tracking, and you can't dodge the full damage no matter what. You'll always get caught. There's no dodge with enough frames to be invulnerable to the damage for the full duration of the attack if he lands directly on top of you. Which is just a complete dice roll if he lands on top of you or not. How the fuck are you supposed to dodge that? He literally just does the fucking jump and kills me. There's nothing I can do about it. How did I almost kill him my first try? How do I do that with literally everything in these games? You can't fucking win. The RNG is too fucking good. He's just gonna jump and kill me.
Hello, sir.
How's it going? I forgot there was a slab here. I'm going to show her who the true Chaos Wielder is. Oh. Have cast a black flame left. Is that Firestone?
You showed her LOL.
I knew that was gonna happen the second I got stuck on that fucking thing. Jesus Christ, I forgot how much I hate the run back. Using the shortcut. It's either you go one direction and you're forced to have the orange charred ring on all the time, or you don't have the orange charred ring on, but and it's a big but you have to spend an extra minute and a half walking back every single time. Yep, should have figured that would have happened. I'm surprised he didn't just instantly kill me. Really? You're gonna fucking jump spam again? Absolute loser of an enemy. Good damage. It's never worth using ranged weapons in NG. Plus. Absolute garbage. Yeah, it's not a plus 15 bow, but a plus 15 bow would have turned that 10 to a 20. Maybe. Like, it's so obvious when you play this game that they never intended this game to be played on higher difficulties without just being an ultimate, I don't give a fuck about 90% of the game kind of person. Oh my god, really? He just hit me with that? Broke my talisman and my pyromancy plane. Yo, why do these things just fucking body block? Get the fuck out of the doorway. Jesus Christ. I just want to go backwards through the fucking level, but I can't even do that. Fucking terribly designed piece of shit rushed level that was put together in less amount of time than Molten Core was in World of Warcraft. Except for Molten Core was an iconic piece of content, and this is an iconic piece of diarrhea. This is an iconic piece of someone ate too much Mexican food the night before. Oh my god, go eat shit with your fucking infinite firestorms, bitch. That can hit me up here. Game design. Unfinished, just like Miyazaki's hopes and dreams. Get over here, shit. Get over here, dickweed. Oh my god, why does everything have to have 6 million HP? What does that even do for the game? Like, how does that make it more difficult because it just has more HP? It takes you longer to kill, therefore harder. Therefore it's harder because you already can't melee all these enemies to death, so have fun with your fucking stupid bow shooting them for an hour and a half to try and clear out this zone. This is why people just speedrun this game. This game's only good as a speedrun game. Doing anything else is just a chore in this game. Yes, this is how walls work. Obviously. You know, my great-grandpappy was a wall designer. He made walls. Stay aggro, you little bitch. Get over it. Oh my god, I'm now low enough to actually be hit by their normal moves, which are complete and utter dog shit, bullshit moves. Oh shit, I didn't put the orange shard ring on. Can you survive this fall? I'm going to say no without fall control. Oh, and because I'm not wearing armor, that means this guy can turn, jump, and one-hit me. And he didn't, because his AI decided to be retarded. I don't know why they program enemies like that, where they give them a bullshit attack that they don't even use 90% of the time. It's like they don't understand how to play their own game. Honestly, with how masochistic they make some of the mechanics in this, in some of the areas, I don't know why they didn't just go full out on it. Why don't you just go full bore? Dark Souls is the definition of half-assery. Dark Souls is the gold standard of half-assery. Because none of the games have not ever released without some portion of the story or the game being cut out. In Dark Souls 1, there was going to be a storyline with Shiva of the East where he would try and take the Chaos Blade from you. And you'd have to go and invade his world. Stop it, lady. Oh, I almost got the glitch. Damn it. Yep. A lot of speedruns rely on incredibly lucky RNG for that one specific part right there. Because if it decides to swing, there's literally nothing you can do. Even if you avoid the hit, it just pushes you into the hole. There's literally nothing you can do. You block it, you get blasted backwards into the hole. You do anything, you get put into the hole. If he attacks during you trying to run back, you die. And again, want to know more about cut content of Dark Souls, there was going to be an actual fight with the Bed of Chaos, where you actually got to fight it, and it had an actual HP bar, and actual moves that was an actual boss fight, and not the fucking RNG, garbage pile, hate yourself fucking fight it is now. In the current game, or as it's always been in the game, it fucking sucks. No one likes it, yet people... I think that this is the best Souls game because of the RPG in the first playthrough. And that's about it. everything else about this game is just... It's mediocre. I mean, it was always that way. So many things could have been better. Once you get past the first half of the game, Dark Souls 1 really should just be all the way up until Ornstein and Smough. Everything past Ornstein and Smough, outside of like Duke's Archives, is a waste of your fucking time and more of a headache than it's worth. And they just make you go to each of the trailing ends of the maps, because initially the entire world is like geolocated around Firelink Shrine, and everything in the game happens around that point until you get to Anor Londo, and the game is like, here's a bunch of dead ends. Clear out all the dead ends, and then you get to go to the final dead end. And it loses the magic that is the first half of the game that people talk about being so great. And when they talk about Dark Souls 1 being so great, literally the only thing they mean is that first half of the game. Because the first half of the game is so much better than the later half of the game, it makes them fucking snowblind to the rest of the game. Because if you're a person who's like, oh, my favorite area is the Tombs of Izalith, you have no perception of game design. You can say it objectively, you like the designs the most. I like the look of the Chaos Demons the most. I like the look of this the most. But if you actually were to say it's your favorite designed level, it's not well designed. So the only way for it to be your most well designed level is if you literally hate game design. If you hate there being a rhyme or reason, if you're the kind of person who would develop your own game and go like, oh, there's a hallway right here. Let me stick an enemy that fits perfectly in the doorway so you can't get by. That's the type of asshole that does that. Because they could have just put it further away from the door or put it slightly to the side of the door or anything like that. But no, it has to be square, perfect circle right in front of the door. So you can't run through the level unless you run through it a meticulous way to make him take a tiny little extra sidestep out of the way of the door. And even then, that's complete RNG. You could have him not do that, and you could just sit there and wait 30 fucking seconds for a stupid dickwad to get out of your way. And then die to fucking pyromancy like I did. Honestly, it's the most genius fucking game design on the planet. There's no single thing more underdeveloped than Demon's Souls and Dark Souls 1 in terms of a finished product that was released. We couldn't finish this zone because of time constraints. Oh, but you could finish an entire DLC? Huh? Huh? You want to just... Sometimes you just want to go into a development studio and just hold your arms out in the room with all their computers and just spin. They don't deserve half of their hard work if they can't actually do hard work. You design 90% of a game to have 10% of it be a sorry fucking excuse for content, only to then add better content later and just go like, just shrug emote. This is what the developers are like when they develop the game. Except for the thing he's holding out in front of his face is his mouse. And he's like, I don't know how to use this. I clicked dragon butts into position for 30 minutes straight. Did I do a good job, Miyazaki? Did I do a good job? I don't know. Honestly, a mod creator has made half of Dark Souls better, at least in terms of the design put into it. Because the guy spent more than 30 minutes deciding on how enemies were going to be placed in a zone. It's like Dark Souls 2, you wouldn't have had to literally replace the entire game of its enemy layout if you could just learn how to place enemies in the fucking first place. Don't put Hyde Knights in an area that's not Hyde's Tower of Flame. Fucking moron. But then in the opposite end of the spectrum, you have a Drake that's sitting outside the boss room of a Dragon Slayer. It's like no one on the design team was like, oh, he's just old, he doesn't care about them anymore. Or, oh, that's his pet dragon. Because even though he's a dragon slayer, he uses drakes to slay the dragons. Isn't that what Dragon Rider's purpose is? Isn't that what his purpose is? Doesn't he's the guy with the rider portion in his name? Like in Monster Hunter, in that world, they have riders, which ride monsters to kill other monsters, and then you have the hunters, which hunt monsters. A slayer kills stuff. That's what the name Slayer implies. He's not dragon capturer. He's not dragon surveyor. Motherfucking dragon slayer, and he's got a dragon outside of his boss room. Well, it's a drake, so it's technically not a dragon, because dragons have 4 legs, but no fucking game ever cares about that rule. Any game that has dragon slayers in it, drakes are always treated exactly the same, because they're just like little worms, basically. It's like a worm to a drake. It's a freaking feetless, legless dragon. It's what a worm is. A WYRM. It's like an Eastern dragon without legs. And then you have drakes, which have 2 legs, and then dragons, which have 4 legs. But then you have games that call things with 2 legs dragons too, so what the fuck does it matter? If I remember right, in one of the old Dungeons and Dragons, like, promo posters and stuff like that, some of the, like, older stuff you could get would have a depiction of a dragon, and the dragon only had 2 feet and wings. It didn't have 4 legs. Can he hit me from there?
worst boss ever.
Do they not let you pop it with an arrow anymore? What is going on? Why isn't it working? They fucking nerf it? Why is my hit not connecting? What the fuck is this? I hate this game. This game is designed and balanced by fucking pieces of shit, and I hate them all. I hate every single fucking one of them. They can't even let you do stuff the way that you want to do it. They're gonna force you into doing some stupid fucking bullshit to do it. You can't even be smart anymore in a fucking RPG. It's just do it the way it's made to be done. And people bitch about fucking Neo. People have the audacity to bitch about Neo. At least Neo gives you other options to do shit. At least you can still headshot a boss and it knocks him on the fucking ground. Fucking game. I don't know why the fucking bow strat wasn't working. Honestly, I get so fucking irritated at this goddamn bullshit. It's so fucking unreal. Honestly, I had to stop myself from just starting a Bloodborne playthrough and just saying fuck it to this one. And you know what? I'm kind of regretting that I didn't. Because I could be playing Bloodborne right now instead of this shit. Look up a video that's called Dark Souls Bed of Chaos, Easy Kill. Guess what the video starts out with? Not the Bed of Chaos. Dude in the video says the frustrating part is all that's left, as if the last part is the most frustrating part. The most frustrating part is the entire part. Is the entire thing. Is the most annoying part. Is the worst designed part. Garbage. Wow, thanks. Thanks for doing 90% of my HP, even though you're just an NG plus enemy. You're not NG plus 2, not NG plus 7, NG plus 1, and your fucking 90% of my HP is gone. Honestly, how do people enjoy ever playing this game in NG plus 7? How would you ever enjoy that? There's no enjoyment to be gained from that unless you literally have no other games to play. There's so much better shit that you could be doing than trying to fight a Bed of Chaos on NG plus 7. Or anything like that, for that matter. Fucking garbage-ass environmental design in this zone makes it so much worse than it already needs to be. Honestly, I'd love to ask. I'm moving, I'm not pressing the attack button. No, I'm literally shooting in the same fucking spot. The easy way. The way that doesn't even work. Come on, just fucking die! Oh my god, and how the lack of fucking sensitivity on the right analog stick while aiming in this is so fucking infuriating. I just want to move it a tiny, tiny fucking bit, but I can't. What is going on? I literally have my crosshair in the same fucking spot as in the fucking shitty video I just watched. I'd imagine that Miyazaki got made the president of his company because the rest of the people were like, I can't believe he tricked or managed to convince millions of people that this game was somehow good. But he didn't. He didn't convince them. It was the speedrunners that did. The speedrunners that convinced people that this game was that great. Because it's not. There are better action games that are more rewarding, funner, and fairer to the player. Dark Souls is one of the most unfair things for the most arbitrary-ass reasons. There's no good reasons for the difficulty in Dark Souls. And that's why, again, like I said, most people just speedrun it to the bosses. And then guess what? They have to deal with the RNG of the terrible bosses. And that's all they ever bitch about when doing a speedrun is, are they going to get good ONS good ONS AI? Is Ornstein actually going to charge me off the beginning, or is he going to stand around casting lightning bolts for 5 minutes? Because you can get either or. I know. The other day when I was doing ONS, that's the only version of him I got, was the I walk around very slowly and throw lightning. And Smo was the one charging me down every 5 seconds and hitting me with his double hitbox stupid running attack that catches you early before he's even next to you. And not even getting hit by the hammer, just getting hit by the running portion of the animation too. Even better. When you think you've dodged it right, but then the game is like, nope. It's just like in PvP. If someone's trying to parry you, and you throw out running attacks a lot, all you have to do to counter the fact that they're going to parry, just run at them like you're going to do a running attack, but don't attack. Just run until your character's colliding with their body, then press the attack button. You'll get the parry baiter every single time. That's why Dark Souls 3 is the best. Because you never commit to another R1 unless your first R1 landed. So good luck parrying. Good luck setup parrying. I don't know why. I thought 4 or 5 days ago when I was watching Prod play through some stuff, I was like, you know what? I kind of want to play through Dark Souls 1 again. But I forgot that I was watching a modded version of the game that is a better game than the original game. I just hate all these endgame bosses. They literally are the fun ruiners. The 4 fun ruiners. The 4, how the fuck do you have fun fighting and designing this shit? Bosses. Even they realized it, and bosses like this never made it into another Souls game for the most part. The closest thing you got is Yorm in Dark Souls 3, but even then Yorm in Dark Souls 3 is still like a decent fight if you just fight him normally and use like range stuff and hit him in the head or whatever to knock him down. I mean, hell, I've seen people kill him just normally. That being said, again, I hate Dark Souls 3 more than Dark Souls 1. Because I also hate the dodge a million times in a row attack chains that they started doing on every single fucking enemy. That doesn't bounce when you block or anything like that, so you can't interrupt it, you can't stop it. Your character's just this weak, flimsy, stupid piece of shit that can't even do anything. Just worthless. And I mean, the game even says that. Your fucking character is just like the most worthless fucking piece of shit on the planet. If you could be any other character in the game, you'd be stronger. Imagine if you got to have NPC levels of HP. Like 2,000 to 3,000 HP in some cases. But then the game would be too easy. People wouldn't like Dark Souls because it's not like you couldn't just jack it up to a fucking difficulty where shit killed you in 2 hits and felt difficult enough for you. Because to me, not having the ability to pick a like, what if someone doesn't like the base difficulty of Dark Souls 1? What if that person only liked the base difficulty of NG? What if they wanted to start out on NG but with a fresh character? They'd have to play through the entire game at level 1 and not pick up anything. Which is possible, because anything's possible. It doesn't mean it's going to be fun or interesting. The only reason it has even been done before is just so that a person could say they had done it and it was possible. But everyone knew it was possible. It's just like the person who goes out of their way, we all know who I'm talking about here. The person who goes out of their way to kill a boss that takes an hour and a half only punching it with their fists, that is a deranged person. Because in any other situation, in any other game, that person would bitch about doing that same task. But because they put the scrutiny on the game that has all this stuff in it, but they're just like, it's possible to beat it with your hands. It's like, yeah, just like it's possible to build a house without power tools. You can do that. Do you want to? No. only people who can literally make a job from doing that will find that fun. Because it is literally the most mundane of tasks you could be doing, except for, unlike a normal mundane task, you have to be looking at the screen all the time to react to every single attack the monster does. Because in that situation, you still take damage just like anything else, except for the fight takes an hour and a half, and you only have, if you didn't get Pinwheel off the beginning and fist him to death, then there's fucking only 5 or 10 healing items you get for an hour and a half. So you better not make any mistakes. Like, I understand that some people just get different enjoyment out of video games, but there are some people who just will rationalize stuff for the most irrational of reasons. My only wish with these games for the future is that they learn how to integrate the RPG back into the game. They learn how to go back to their... And I mean this for the rest of the development team. Honestly, I couldn't give a fuck about a Miyazaki, because if a Miyazaki is supposedly such a good game director like everyone talks about him being, then you wouldn't have issues like Izalith not being finished. You wouldn't have had problems like the fucking Archstone and Demon Souls never getting finished. You wouldn't have a problem with Bloodborne not supporting PS4 Pro despite the fact the last patch was around the time when it was released. Even though Dark Souls 3 got one and tries to run at 60. I say tries, because it's not like they optimized the game for 60 frames a second at all. The game still will regularly drop down to the 40s and 50s all the time. They could have at least tried to make some of this stuff better. As much as I don't like Dark Souls 2 and I don't like Scholar of the First Sin's layout and I have problems with it, at least that developer tried to do something different. at least the director of Dark Souls 2 was like, well, the base game is like so fucked, and with like the DLC and stuff like that, a lot of the stuff in the game's placement doesn't really make a whole lot of sense or anything like that, and they kind of just wanted to try and make the game better and have it make a little bit more sense. I mean, did they do a good job of that? Did they try? Yeah. So at least I can give them credit there. You can't give them credit with Dark Souls 1 and Demon Souls, because they just didn't try. They didn't give a fuck. They didn't think that the game was going to be as popular as it was. They thought it was just going to be another Demon Souls that sold like moderately well for that company and the type of game it was. He never expected to make sequels of it. That's how not invested in the game he was. And that's what people, when people talk about Miyazaki caring so much about small details and stuff like that, I'm like, he probably cared about that stuff in like the first 2 to 3 months of development, and then as development actually went on, less and less of it was cared about because it just became too hard to deal with, too much time, too many constraints, apparently. So many constraints that you just have to drag and click a bunch of dragon butts into position to fill an area with enemies because you don't know what the fuck to put there. The convoluted character storylines I can forgive, because that's just a unique thing to Souls games, is to have convoluted character storylines that require you to go to multiple different zones that you've already been to progress. But I need to use the bathroom real quick. I'll be right back. Sorry. Trying to fix my hair. That's why I didn't want to play more last night, because I was like, do I really want to do Bed of Chaos and shit now? I have to do basically the two bosses, which are the least fun in a row. That have the most annoying, painful run back. For Seath, it's annoying because this is the run back right here. You have to run all the way from this bonfire, all the way down in, all the way into the boss room. I don't even know if Seath can be bled or not, but I'll try. Just to see. If he can't be bled, then I'll swap to one of my other weapons and put Lightning Blade on it. Since it's a dragon, it should do a lot of damage. In theory, but he's a reverse dragon, so stone core, soft outside. my god. Come on! Just let me fucking go where I want to, game. Jesus Christ. Fucking A. Oh my god. You can't even run through this fucking level, dude. Oh my god.
Are you going to the next playthrough?
No. I don't need to fight Gwen to just restart over again. I probably won't play this. In the future though, so I was trying to do one last co-op. I guess I'll also try and invade too. I'll do one last thing and then... Oh yeah, you can't invade unless you're human. I don't even remember what covenant I'm in. Oh, I'm a Chaos Servant. Screw it. I was gonna spend like 30 more minutes playing or so if I could get some co-op, but I'm just gonna kill Gwen and probably turn it off. And then next time I stream, I'll probably start a new Bloodborne playthrough. Fail. Fail. Is it gonna give me bad RNG and run at like an angle again? Oh my god. What is wrong? Yeah. Jeez, I forgot how bad his moves are. At least I double healed. Heal! I pressed the square button like 20 times, dude. Well, that's it. see in another year, or whenever I decide to play this. Every time I play it, I forget what a heaping pile of shit the end game is in that game. Really, it's the same with every Souls game. But I'll be back. I don't know if I'll be streaming tomorrow, just because of a schedule change that I'm going to be doing for me. But I'll probably be streaming the day after tomorrow. I'll start Bloodborne. Well, I'll start Bloodborne again, like I haven't already played 3 characters all the way through all of the chalices. And NG+. It's just a better game, I feel. As bullshit as it does have its own things, as I complain about bullshit in every game, I feel like having played this, you always have to come back to Dark Souls or Demon Souls to really understand just how mediocre the game actually is. Like, a good 75% of the game being, like, super mediocre. And people just, like, talking it up to being this, like, thing that it's not. It's not, like, a great game. And when you watch even people who talk highly about the game go through half of this areas, they'll talk about how they don't like the entire areas of the game. And it's like, that's a huge portion of the game. Because the rest of the game, there's like the first half of the game, like I was talking about earlier, which takes place in the first section.
WTF, this is the best game ever, man. WTF, how dare you, LOL, just kidding.
No, it's not. The Bed of Chaos automatically qualifies it as like a contender for like not even top 1,000. I don't think it would even be in top 1,000 video games of all time. But that is my opinion. I think Bloodborne would definitely be up there. I don't think Dark Souls would be, though. Dark Souls has too many flaws and problems with its combat system and the way that it works. And the way that bosses work and stuff like that. And when I'm talking about flaws in its combat system, I mean stuff like infinite stun lock if you don't have enough poise. But then, if you have enough poise, you're an unstoppable wall of death that nothing can really stagger you unless it hits you like 6 times. And, to be honest, I'm a fan of poise. I like poise more than no poise. However, I also do not like anything to do with stagger mechanics in video games. If I'm going to stagger on every hit, they need to stagger on every hit. And if they don't stagger on every hit, then I shouldn't. I hate when video games are like, the character is treated differently than an identically sized guy who's also like a character. Bloodborne does it as well, but at least Bloodborne does it in a semi-rational way, where it's like they give hunters infinite bullets because if they didn't, they'd just spam all 20 of their bullets immediately off the beginning and have no bullets left. Which, to be honest, should just be the way it works, but that's why I said, as much as everyone praises Dark Souls game design, it also has some of the worst, egregious, dumb bullshit game design in it. Worse than most old school RPGs. And old school RPGs people always used to refer to as being really, really hard games. They weren't hard games, you just had to understand them. Even when you understand Dark Souls, it doesn't stop you from randomly dying to some bullshit. Even on no-hit runs, there are sections of the game where it's just like a dice roll if you get hit or not. Because just like in the section of where I was trying to run yesterday with Manus, there's that entire section where there's the black sorcery fucking bitch that shoots you from behind. And it's like, you never get hit in the same spot. So you can never reliably predict where to roll, because sometimes she just giggles when she spots you, which makes the first one come out like 3 seconds later. Sometimes she uses a dark orb, then she uses the small dark hail, and then another dark orb when you're like halfway down the thing. And it's just like, it's bullshit like that that makes it impossible to have any amount of guarantee out of the game. Again, I hate to refer to Neo because everyone always thinks I just dick ride Neo. But that's because I have a fundamental understanding of what game design is. And Neo is a better designed game. Even in the most unfair circumstances in Neo, like fighting Date Masamune or versus two of the hardest bosses in the game in the highest difficulty where they one-shot you, Neo is still a more fair and balanced game than Dark Souls. At its absolute hardest, the pinnacle of its difficulty is still more balanced than Dark Souls. And I can't stand people who talk about Neo like it's bad, but then they'll play a game like this and do Bed of Chaos and not realize how diarrhea that is. At least in every fucking Neo boss, you swing at the motherfucker. You swing at them, you know, with your weapon. You swing at them, and not only do you get to swing at them, you get to change stances. You have a gun that you can pull out that works. Unlike fucking Dark Souls, where they still don't have a game that works right with ranged. After 5 fucking games? 6 if you count Sekiro. But Sekiro didn't have ranged aiming weapons in it, so that doesn't count. But, like, come the fuck on. I love how just some random team picks up, like, Team Ninja picks up a project for a game that had been a failure for years and turned it into a more of a workable game with better systems in it and more creativity put into the design. And I don't mean in the design of the levels or something. I mean in the design of what is the core of the gameplay. What is your gameplay in Neo? Neo is a better game both in terms of gameplay and how you can augment your gameplay. The only separate thing you can do in Dark Souls is use magic. If you're not using magic, you're mashing R1, because R2s with most weapons take too long and aren't useful, unless it's like Zweihander R2 where it pancakes the enemy every single time it hits them. There's only very certain exceptions to the norm, and most people don't use those. Whenever you watch people play, whenever I see people play, whenever I co-op with people, you want to know what they do? They R1. They R1 and they R1. And then they swap to a magic spell, and they swap to their catalyst, and they R1. And they R1 and they R1. Oh, a couple of circle buttons. Don't forget your well-timed circle buttons, and then R1. And some more R1. And then a little bit more R1. And people are like, oh, it's so Dark Souls, it has all these complexities, it's got this, it's got that, and it's just like, R1, dude. R1, 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 R1. R1, R1. Are you using a curved sword? Add 2 more R1s. Are you using a straight sword? Add another R1. and just R1. You got a buff to put on your weapon? Press left on your D-pad and then press L1. Whoa, it's a different button. I don't know if my brain can handle that. And then people who talk about, like, again, games like Neo or looters in general. I love people who are like that. Because why do you play a looter if you don't like looters? And then complain that it's not like a game, which is not a looter. People who play Neo, which is a looter action game, it is at its core a looter. There's lots of loot in it, randomized stats. It's a Diablo game for all intensive purposes. And guess what you can do in that game? You can spam abilities just like Dark Souls, except for the ability either looks cooler, is more effective, or actually scales with your character's gear, and you have a build based around doing that. Or you just have a variety build like I run, and you do pretty much anything and everything whenever the fuck you feel like it. You can have specialized builds. There are people who know how to make builds in Neo in like less than like 10 minutes. The hard part is just putting all the points in really fast. It's not even, I don't know. Like, I don't even like to compare the two games in terms of the games that they are. Because to me, Neo is a vastly superior game. It might have worse level design. The level design might be dog shit. The enemy design, it may not have 30,000 different enemies that you don't fight anyways. Like people always brag about Dark Souls. People are always like, well, Dark Souls, it has like 200 enemies. It's got all this different enemy variety. And then you watch them play, or you would watch that person play, and they spend either half of their time not killing the enemies, avoiding the enemies because they are, quote, too hard or annoying to deal with. Like the dragon butts in Dark Souls 1. The dragon butts, the drakes in the Valley of Drakes, stuff like that. People don't... It's like, cool, it's a unique enemy. What the fuck does it matter, though? You're never gonna fight it. You only fight it if you go out of your way to fight it, and you don't... It's not worth it. It's never worth it. All of the games have enemies like that, where it's just not worth it. And people who try to rationalize Dark Souls somehow being good because it doesn't just feed you 30,000 different enemies, it's like, that's one of the things that I've seen some of the people who still play Souls games regularly complain about with recent Souls games. I say recent Souls games, with games like Code Vein and stuff like that. People were like, the enemy variety sucks and stuff like that. And I'm like, yeah. And unlike Neo, this game has shitty enemy variety, shitty boss fights, and shitty mechanics, broken rolling, broken stagger and stun mechanics, and on top of that, ludicrously overpowered bosses that just one-shot you in higher difficulties and make the entire purpose of leveling up your character pointless, because you might as well be level 1. You're gonna get one-shot anyways by fucking everything. It's such a joke. At least in Neo, you only get one shot when you can't control the fucking mob. But Neo gives you so many tools to control mobs with. It's not even funny. Even just basic attacks in Neo are used to control mobs. You want to break the horn of a yokai, or you want to weaken its ki, swap to high stance. Use a high stance ability or something like that. Then you need to move to get out of there because it's doing an attack. At the end of attacking in high stance, do a key pulse stance change into low stance and dodge away. It's way more button inputs. It's way more interactive. The game is faster. It runs better. I can't believe that there are even people who debate it. Like, gaming has gotten so divided in terms of what people can judge on a game and judge it as being good. And I'm not trying to say that Dark Souls is like a 3 out of 10. Dark Souls is still an easy 6 to 7 out of 10 in most cases. But Neo definitely would be an 8 for me. It would be an 8 or a 9. With its major letdowns being lack of enemy variety, lack of low-level ways to maintain your gear and keep it soul-matched to your level. But that's kind of not the point of the game, because you're supposed to be swapping out armor and finding other armor pieces that are higher level and stuff like that. And mixing stuff up until you get to the ultra late game where making a specialized build is necessary. Which you should already be doing before then, because you've had to go through 4 difficulties to even get to the actual, like, hard endgame difficulty. And Neo is a lot more of a, you can run through a level in Neo killing all of the enemies in less than 10 minutes. Easily. If you know what you're doing with good weapons, good skills, it's so easy to go through groups and groups of yokai, because they all have different mechanics and ways to stun them, knock them on the ground, or manipulate them in the environment. You just don't have that in fucking Souls games. Neo is like if you took some parts of Tenchu without the building, climbing, and all of that, and put it into a third-person action game environment that has Diablo loot. How can you not like that? And on top of that, the thing that I hate the most about people who criticize Neo, and not that it's not a valid criticism, it's more so that their criticism is not valid because the game is that type of game. And that is people who complain about there being too much loot in Neo. People who complain about having to go through an inventory of 100 things because they don't know how to either A, read button prompts on the screen, B, look through the options menu for 5 minutes, C, experiment with the button prompts on the screen that are already present in the cell menu. I personally, and this is going to be like a D, but it's not a rule, it's just a story about it. I watched a guy stream Neo for like, I don't know, a couple months. Or something like that. He only streamed every couple of weeks or so. And I would tune in, and one of the things he would regularly complain about, and I would type it in his chat, because he didn't have that many people watching him. I would type in his chat like, you know, you can group sell items, and he'd be like, oh, that's sweet, I'll think about it, and stuff like that next time. He'd go to the thing, and he'd start doing what everyone does. He looks through every item individually and goes click, click, down one, click, click, down one, click, click, down one, click, oh, circle, square, down, X, X, down, X, and it's just like, gah! How can you be so stupid? And eventually in his chat, I was like, when you're in the cell menu and you're doing the click X to sell, instead of clicking X to sell, press triangle and hold it and scroll over other items. And he finally realized that you could sell stuff in groups, and that sped it up a little bit. But then I was like, and I should have told him this way first, because he never learned how to do it the way. I was like, if you press the touchpad, it'll bring up a menu where it says check rarity, and you can check all the rarity of a color, and then press the X button and it will delete it, all of it, from your inventory in literally less than fucking 10 seconds. You don't have to sit there for 30 minutes. You can literally clear out a 500 inventory in Neo in less than 30 seconds without having to min-max fucking looking at items. Unless you are looking for very specific things on the gear, which can only appear on higher difficulty armor anyways, then there's no point. And if you're looking for it, you're looking for it. It's different than being a person who just says, I'm just trying to play through the game, or I'm just trying to get through the game, while simultaneously refusing people's help to help you make the game easier, so that at the end of the game, you're not bitching about stuff that people tried to help you with. But so many people just don't treat that game the way it should be treated. And I don't mean that as in like a fucking superficial thing. I mean that as in like too many people play the game like they're playing Dark Souls. They don't play Neo like they're playing Neo. When you play Neo like you're actually playing the game and you're not just, I'm staying in mid stance and I'm only pressing the square button twice and then pressing X to dodge away. There's nothing else I could possibly do. I have all these items in my fucking inventory that scale and do a bunch of other shit. I could set like the enemies on fire and it actually works. It's not like a firebomb in Dark Souls where it only does 20 damage after you get past the first section of the game. You can put buffs on your weapon. You can use guardian spirit talismans. Oh, but I don't use magic in Dark Souls. So I'm not going to use magic in a game where the magic is more supportive than offensive. Oh, but I don't want to use Sloth Talisman because that's OP. That's fine. Sloth Talisman isn't the only talisman. You can use Life Seal Talisman and reduce the boss's ki, making it so you can combo it more. You can do something instead of complaining that the bosses are too boring to fight, while simultaneously being the fucking person that doesn't understand what the fuck they're doing. And I can completely understand if you want to play Neo and don't put any points into magic or ninjutsu or something like that. But the game literally spoon feeds you fucking large amounts of locks. So you can unlock skill points that you can put into magic without having magic, and you can unlock the skill which increases your omnio capacity, so you can still use a couple things of magic like a buff or a weakness or something like that. Something that you can give yourself an advantage with, because that's what the game is built around. The game isn't built around playing on an equal ground, which isn't even equal, like Dark Souls. Dark Souls is, you play on a fair ground as the enemies, except for it's not. The enemies have way more advantages than you. Because if they didn't, they wouldn't be able to kill you half of the time. And the game wouldn't be as hard if they didn't have all this artificial, it's what it should be called, artificial difficulty. Because it's just stupid. It honestly is. There's so much shit in Souls games, especially more modern ones, that are just them taking... It's like when someone does an impression of someone else, they like just do like the same thing over and over again, because that's like the one thing that they know how to do with the impression. Like the, hey, I'm walking here kind of shit. That's the equivalent in video games. That is the guy who keeps saying the same shit over and over and over again, but he's not saying it because he said it. He said it just because he's impersonating someone else. And so it's exaggerated. And Code Vein is the best example of that, where it's something that the normal just of the gameplay is fine. But then they take an extreme and they build upon it. And then it's pretty much like every one of the end game bosses in Code Vein is just a circle AoE spamming nightmare. Where it's just, the game is built around you having skills that you can use, but those skills take like 2 seconds to get off, but all of the monsters and all of the bosses can attack faster than your startup, so you have to wait for them to do an attack, hope it staggers so then you can follow up with more damage, or then you have to back off and wait and hope you don't get instantly killed by the next thing that hits your fucking character. Oh, you used your frickin' Dragon Lunge skill and the boss is gonna do its AoE attack. It's like Dark Beast Parl in Bloodborne, except every boss is Dark Beast Parl. At least Dark Beast Parl / Loran Silverbeast. Or not Loran Silverbeast, Loran Silverbeast is the fucking white looking things. Oh, what the hell do they call him in the Chalice dungeon? I can't remember. It's been too long. Anyways, he has a different name in the Chalice dungeons, and he's way harder, and his AoE pretty much one-shots you guaranteed almost every time, and you gotta learn how to, like, perfect time the roll with the AoE, or just dodge away from it, which is how they intended for you. But dodging away from him gives him an opening to fuck you over, so... I personally just don't see how people... I mean, obviously it's an opinion thing, but I will never see how people think that Dark Souls is that much greater than Neo, just because it has enemy and level design advantages. Like, if you were going to rate the enemy and level design on a scale to 1 to 10, comparing Dark Souls to Neo, Neo would be like a 3 or a 4 out of 10 in terms of level design. And in terms of enemy variety, I would probably give it like a 5 or a 6, maybe. In terms of enemy placement and design in terms of how the levels play, I give Neo actually a higher rating than Dark Souls. I would give Neo probably an 8, whereas I would give Dark Souls like a 6.5 or a 7. And I say that purely because there are so many levels in Dark Souls which are just a fucking death run. And it's just a pain in the absolute ass to do it on a regular basis. Like, if you had to run it every single time, you'd just speed run it. You wouldn't even clear the entire level. Dark Souls 2 has a lot of those levels, where it's like the second you in between two bonfires is like 70 to 80 enemies, 12 of which have more than 4,000 HP, and it's just a slog fest getting through all the fucking enemies in some of those zones. And then you die, and it instantly gets reset, and you have to go through all that fucking bullshit. Like in the fucking, what is it? The DLC that starts with you walking across the giant chain to that tower and the entire area is surrounded by lava. I think it's Crown of the Iron King. That area is one of my least favorite areas in a Souls game. That area and the stupid fucking ice area in DS2. DS3 also has areas like that. DS3's Ring City DLC, for example. The fucking Death Run area that you have to go through. The second Death Run area that you have to go through. Because they didn't use the concept once. Oh, no. They made sure to use it in every single portion of that DLC. So, you begin the DLC with the fucking stupid laser shitheads. You beat the first boss, you get past that, and then you gotta deal with arrow summoning douchebag. And then you get past that, and you get down, and then you gotta deal with the fucking other giant guy that spawns other shit on you. And then, again, further down, you have the, what I call the Isle of Fucklords, which is just the giant staircase down into the muck with all of the abyss-headed guys with the black, like, void skulls. You get down there, then it's the big dude walking around. You have the Dragon Slayer armor that's all the way across the water portion. All the ring knights that are on that tower, and then you gotta go through another death run, which is all the way to Midier, and then up past Midier, and then through the little shitty tower with Midier. Then you get to the bonfire in that little area. Then you get out, and Midier's on the side of the ledge, and then you have to death run by him again, and you knock him down, but it's basically, you can do either or. If you're just trying to beat the DLC, you run by him and then come back later. But if you're doing it all progressively, you knock him down, and then you fight him after you knock him down. But either way, it's a half death run, half not a death run. You get up past there, and you finally get to the last area where there's no death runs, which is the small gap in between the elevator where the first dual greatsword wielding ring knight is. Then you get to the boss, and then you get to the ash area, and that's it. Every other zone in that DLC has 2 or 3 death run zones. And it's just, who thought that, like, people who say that the Ring City is the pinnacle of Dark Souls content, I really don't know how their brain is wired. And I'm a smoker, so my brain is wired all fucked up. But I still at least have some amount of outward, like, looking from an outward perspective on something that I used to love a lot. And it's like, you can't look at Dark Souls and tell me for a second that a lot of those design decisions are good. All for the pure sake of difficulty. When again, no one clears through half of those levels whenever you watch people play, or you see people play, or you co-op with people in that game. It's why half of the people don't co-op. Because they're not trying to clear the levels. They're just trying to get to the boss. So you only put your sign down in front of the boss. You don't put it down for the level. And you just sit there and wait. Lot good that enemy variety does. I don't know. There's so many fucking issues with every Souls game in terms of its level design that honestly Nioh 2 could come out and it could have copy and pasted levels in it from Nioh 1 and I would still give it more credit. Because that's not the type of game Nioh is. Nioh isn't a game that's trying to be all showy and fucking like, look at this amazing environment. That's not Nioh. Nioh is, look at this amazing gear and look at the fucking damage this guy is dealing. Which it's an inside knowledge thing. You can't outwardly look at Nioh. It's not the kind of game which looks impressive if you watch a guy play through the first level of the game. If you watch a guy play through the first level in Nioh, you're just going to think it's fucking Dark Souls. Because you don't get stances, you only get to attack with the square and the triangle button and stuff like that. Because the game tries to ease you into it. It's like, here's something that's familiar to you. And then they immediately start introducing their different mechanics, and people's brains go, I don't like tutorials. And then, even though they skip the tutorial, because the designers of Neo were so ahead of people who skip tutorials that they put the fucking tutorial in the starting map as well, so you can't even avoid being tutorialized. The game forcefully puts tutorials in front of you, even if they only show up on the screen as a prompt for a couple seconds because you picked up a loot pile, because that's how it works in Neo. If you've never played it, you pick up a loot pile and you get an Amrita memory, and the Amrita memory will have a control tip in it in the first level of the game. When you fight the Onryoki, the first half of the game has a tooltip for every single function of the game. How to swap your weapon, how to key pulse, how to do all that stuff, and it's just listed as buttons instead of it being a forced tutorial. But you can do the forced tutorial, and then again the game will tutorialize you in the game in the progressive manner that they would have wanted you to be introduced to them. Sort of like Dark Souls, but better, because unlike Dark Souls where you gotta click on a message on the ground, and that causes people to inherently walk by it and not give a fuck about it because they don't want a tutorial, in Neo, you pick up the loot because it's a looter game, and the tutorial shows up on your screen regardless of if you don't want it or not. So, regardless of if the person bitches about the controls, or that they didn't know a controller, the game didn't teach them something, the game did, they just fucking refused to learn it. It's just like Monster Hunter. Monster Hunter does it the same way. Anytime you come across something new in Monster Hunter, it puts a fucking tutorial on the screen, which you can sit there for literally 30 seconds and read, unless you're a brain-dead moron who can't read more than a paragraph a minute. It's really fucking sad, because there's no pleasing either end of the spectrum. You have the super purists who don't want to be tutorialized, but then complain when the controls aren't intuitive enough for them to learn. Then you have the people who complain about the controls, which are the people who say that there's too many of them, or that they're too hard to learn. In Neo, that's one of the things that people always complained about with, that I argued on a guy's YouTube channel with, because I watched, again, him play through Neo back when I was playing through Neo, and I was amazed. And I'm not trying to say this to toot my own horn, I'm just saying it because it is factually true. You can go and watch my first playthrough of Neo on YouTube, because it's still up there. You can watch how I played the game from the very get-go. You can go and watch my alpha and beta footage, although I was pretty ragey in that. I'm pretty ragey in general, but you can watch my original how I used to play the game. And you probably won't be surprised, just because you're going to hear it from me now, that I was already key pulsing, stance swapping, and doing the whole lot. I was already doing that literally less than 2 to 3 hours into the game, because I had had that experience in the beta slightly, and I only got better at it as I only tried to use more and more things at different times and situations. Even though in my first playthrough, one of the things that I did abuse, because it was just something I found that worked, was I used stance, mid-stance triangle attacks to knock things out of key. But again, that was just first stuff. I still used stance swapping, different skills, and stuff like that. Especially once I got further into it and I got more comfortable. But I was doing that. And then you go and you watch just about any other person's playthrough from back like 3 years ago. You go and watch a person's playthrough, they stay in one stance all the time. They don't key pulse. They don't look at their armor properly. They just kind of glaze over, oh, this one has higher defense, and I'm going to slap it on. There are people I watch play Neo who would put on armor that they didn't have the requirements for. And it's like, how can you not see the fact that the entire item card is red? How do you just ignore that? Are you colorblind? It's honestly amazing. I think Neo is one of those games that best shows your average human capability to experiment in a video game. Because most people don't experiment. They find the one thing that works for them and they use that all the time. And that's why I always laugh when people brag about the variety in Souls games. Because it's just not there. The variety in a Souls game is a different way to press R1. Do you want a long R1 or a short and fast R1? That's about the difference. Do you want to use a spear? Or do you want to use a greatsword? Or do you want to use a falchion? Regardless of what you're using, the only thing that's changing the way that you play the game is how fast the weapon is. I don't know, it's like I was watching people play Neo 2 and I'm like, oh god, they added more mechanics and most people don't know how to use the already existing mechanics. There's so many people I talked to that didn't even know that they could equip 2 yokai skills. They didn't know how to equip yokai skills, and at the end of every mission, because they didn't understand the menus, and the menus didn't like highlight something and tell them exactly how it worked, they would constantly swap out the one yokai skill they had for a different one. Whatever one from the list that they got was new.
LOL, can you really? Lol, I didn't know you can equip 2 LOL, just kidding.
Like, during the period of time when I was co-oping in Neo 2 for those like 4 or 5 days with like Hyro in them, there would be a lot of people who would send me a friend request because I have my messages turned off currently due to getting random spam and stuff like that. There was people who would friend me, I'd friend them, they'd message me or invite me to a party, and they'd ask me how I was doing so much damage, or how I was doing X, how I was doing what skill, or how I learned it. Like the French guy that we met, that Hyro met, that now I took off my friends list and blocked because he kept inviting me to a party to try and talk to me even though he can barely speak English, and every single thing he says is a respect my opinion deal, and it's like, I don't care about opinions. Even my own opinions I don't care about. Shit, almost dropped my controller. Almost dropped my controller into my jacket. But it's just like, I don't know, you can't trust gamers nowadays. Most of them, they can't judge situations or judge stuff properly. That's why a lot of people end up playing garbage frickin' AAA games that claim that they're made with a huge budget, but they're really not. Their huge budget is just how much money the company has. When in reality, it didn't cost that much to make a fucking sports game with the same engine. Like, who are you kidding? Who are you lying to? Because it ain't me. I don't buy that stuff at all. I don't even get them. Like, when MLB The Show was free, I didn't even put it in my library. Sports games are the most corrupt, backwoods, like, fuck you over kind of games on the market right now. Even Call of Duty is like that, because Call of Duty makes lobbies based on fucking map packs. So if you have specific map packs, that means you can't play with other people who have different packs or didn't buy the DLC you bought. And because on PS4, the only way to delete DLC from a console is to reinitialize the PS4. If you didn't know that, there's no way to individually delete DLC on PS4. Even if you uninstall the game, its DLC still sticks around. Contrary to what you might think, or what some people will say, the PS4 does not delete DLC. Ever. Only when it's factory reset can you re-download the DLC. And so people would get fucked over because they'd buy map packs, which then would force them into lobbies with only players who also bought it, or more serious players that they didn't really want to play against. And instead of PlayStation, and this is like 2 to 3 years ago, dude. This isn't even like a recent thing. This is 2 to 3 years ago, and you still can't delete your fucking DLC on PS4. You could on PlayStation 3, you can on Xbox 360, you can on Xbox One, but you can't on PS4.
Because DLC is just a small code on PS4 that is always tied to your account.
Well, it's not even that it's tied to your account. It's literally tied to the install on the PS4. If you reinitialize the PS4, put your account back on the PS4, download the game, then you have to download the DLC again. That's how it works. It's so fucked up. But, anyways, I'm gonna hop off. I've just been talking for like...
I was surprised when I bought the old Hunters for Bloodborne. I was expecting an actual download. Instead it just said installed, like, wait, WTF.
Oh yeah, well that's because they obviously need the content installed in order for you to be able to co-op with people from the DLC who have items on them. That's normal. But for games that have actual content patches or content added, like I said, like a map pack that you can only get with a specific install or something like that, you're stuck with it. But yeah, I'm gonna hop off, dude. If you want to party or chat sometime, although I know that you're probably going to sleep soon. But if you want to chat sometime tomorrow or play something, just let me know. I'll be up. I say tomorrow, I mean later today. Because I'm probably going to be going to sleep at like 8 o'clock and waking up at like 5, and I'm not going to be streaming. Like I said. We'll see. But anyways, have a good one, dude.